And I'm super pleased to invite my good friend and our permanent Devoxx Ukraine speaker, Chief Solution Architect at Snorzel, Java champion, Mohamed Taman. Hi,
Hello,
welcome, my
hi
friend.
from Serbia. Hi, my friend.
Hi.
Nice to see you, and very glad to join again my beloved Ukraine Devoxx conference. So thank you for having me, and thank you for Poiter
Our
that
pleasure.
mentioned
Our
that we
pleasure.
are so that we are yes we are completing each other, and I hope that I will give something useful for the audience beside what he says, especially that you will have also Simon Reiter. So I hope that we all of us like covering some stuff. I was attending the session and I was glad to hear all of this from him. It was amazing. Then I will not discuss such points very deeply as he does, and just going to touch because I have to show how the Java is evolving since Java 11, even before, but 11 was a significant release. So let me share my presentation. Welcome everyone, and thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your time. I'm very glad to be here again and again and again, and in the future. This is a really good friend conference. It's a friend and family, to be honest. And I hoping in the near future that we will be again in person to meet again in lovely Ukraine. So my name is Mohamed Taman, and I'm working as a Chief Solution Architect and Java Champion. So this is my talk about Java 11 to 21 evolution. And this is one of the main questions that I always get from even juniors, because juniors, when they are or internship, and I have this like 4 months ago in my company, we hosted internship guys from some other countries to give them like what we are doing in the company, how they will work, or how the project is structured, and then the languages that we use. And everyone coming from backgrounds like front-end engineering, Java, but Kotlin, mobile, and then the main question like, why are you still using Java? Because it's very old, like, and also it's not that modern enough. Like was old consumption because people doesn't even have time to catch up with the new things that's going on with Java. And this is why I'm highlighting here one question. And I wrote an article about this for our company, and I was discussing this always, that is Java still relevant and worth learning in 2023? Yes, it's still, and even more than this, because as we will see in the evolution of Java from actually 9 as an idea, what is going on, and it's succeeded in this, is just to bring the modern tool set for you in order to cope with the modern technologies and the latest and cutting edge technology, from cloud, from big data, from machine learning, from AI. So it just, because Java is ecosystem, is just not a language. This is what the most important thing that we have to understand. Java is not about the Java language and changes that we're going to see. It's about the GVM and the evolution of the GVM. So the GVM, like, you cannot run Scala, Groovy, Kotlin without the GVM. Even using GraphVM, we are interpreting much more. But the GVM is the core innovation here. And Java is like any language, it's synthetic sugar that you prefer to use it to write code in Java that is compiled using our GVM. And you can do it in any other language that suits you, but Java start to evolve more and more to become more modern like others, but always, yes, we are seeing what others is doing, and then we have to go a step further. So let's go to see what we have in our bag, and to reveal it. So I do write a lot of article. We will find this is like the latest article for Java magazine. I wrote a sneak peek, and when I will share with this presentation, all of these kind of like lines you see here hovering are links. So once you click it, it will direct you to the real the real article, and you can just read a bunch of everything in more detail. These are some from my publications. And if you want to catch me, I'm very active in social media. On You can have me on Twitter, LinkedIn. You are welcome to connect. And by the way, all my proof of concepts, things that I do as a consultancy and work and as a big project with documentation was always migrating to the latest, either it's Spring or Jakarta EE project or Java. I always do this kind of like upgrades. So for you to have and get in touch what we are just doing, what we need to change based on the commit. So you are welcome to contribute in my GitHub applications or even start it and make use of it. It's open for the community. Uh, let's go now for the talk. And our agenda is very simple. Like we will see a little bit about the Java history and LTS, since we have Java 21 and it's LTS. And this is why we need to know a little bit more about this, because it was also confusing topic. And we will review some opinionated features, actually the language features more than anything, unless there is something really I would like to show it, but I will not discuss everything. I just want like to give you a glimpse how it was since Java 11, then to 17, which is from LTS to LTS, then from 18 to 21 as a next LTS, and the evolution happened in this period. Give you resources so you can dig deep and also learn more. So let's see Java history, how it was, as all of you know about this. Before we were like releasing every almost like 3 to 4 years, and at that time it was okay somehow, but since we started like the data becomes and the evolution of releasing for many software industries and many software programming languages and tools and everything that just releasing so frequently, so Java cannot cope with the latest technology to wait for 4 years to provide all of this kind of information and features. As you can see, like Java 8 introduced only main 56 Java enhancement proposal as a feature, but you don't know what is behind this, like a bug fixes and many enhancement in the API and classes and everything. This is things that I also discuss in my hidden gems of any Java version. So I'm not touching only the main gib, which is the features, only also touching the main important additions, removal, enhancement, bug fixes, everything that you can see. So I encourage you to visit these articles. So Java 9 was long waited, and it came with 91 feature explicitly, and there is dozens, thousands of enhancement and 10,000 of additions and classes has been added and refined for this release. So, and also for learning curve, it's really very hard because you have to grasp all of this once. And then the decision has been made to like, okay, we need to release frequently, give and features for the people, they can evaluate it, and we can get feedback also and introduce some smaller changes. So we release frequently, people can catch up with the new things, and also they can learn easier and they can memorize it. And then we have also supporting companies and supporting the innovation. If there is something new coming into the market, we can grasp it and we can introduce some useful tools built in the GDK to support this without getting out, and come with a lot of libraries and tools to solve our problems, like it's one Swiss knife that we will have. So you can see that since Java GDK 10 and GDK 11, it was like we are testing this release cadence of 6 months to see how stable it is, how we can introduce some stuff. And to be honest, since GDK 11 and onward until GDK 29, the process are improved and give more confident and more enhanced process of the releasing, and all the features are like targeting are submitted with a very good quality. A lot of enhancement has been done. So let's go and to see how this kind of release cadence support us. Java 11 is one commercial support, still will be supported until, like I hear, that will be supported for more 8 years even. GDK 8 will be continue supporting because some people like still big portion and big percentage of people relying on GDK. And I have debates on this, like with someone on LinkedIn. I posted like stop using Java 8 because even the big vendors start to migrate to the latest Java, like 17 and onward. They will stop supporting like AWS, for example. They will stop using GDK 8 as a base for all the services like from this December. So So this is why, and they told me like what I cannot do in Java 7 that I can do with GDK, the latest version you are mentioning. Then we went into discussion and he convinced that yes, there is a bunch of things has been added, but this is because not getting in touch with what is going on. So what is an LTS version? Actually, it's a long-term support, as all of you knows. It's a marketing concept. It's related to specific vendor. By the way, it's not that Java 21 is the LTS. This is the concept that can be introduced for some companies. Some other vendors could might like, okay, I have also my normal release 6 months release cadence feature based could be also LTS for us because we can provide support. It's not specific to any vendor to have it like, yeah, we mentioned like Oracle Open GDKs, this is LTS for us. That doesn't mean it should be LTS for others. And even the number of supporting, it's different from company to company. So you have to search if you are using Zulu, if you are using Azul systems, ClipperSoft, like using Optimium on whatever the vendor, Oracle, AWS, Corito, Microsoft GDK, whatever you have to check which number of years they're giving support, and they have sometimes more even support. And the changes happens is that the LTS will be every 2 years, not 3 years, and this is why we have Java Twin Twin after this coming frequently now. So this is to give more innovation to the companies to catch up with Java every 2 years, so they can have reliable support for it. So who's supporting? Each vendor decide how and when to ship. And Azure even have something called medium-term support for this kind of, 6 months release features. And for how long? Usually from 6 to 8 years. You have support for one, and there is overlap between the next one and the old one until you get the migration. And finally, what is the development impact? It's just many bug fixes covered for long time, performance improvement, any new features is going to be supported, vulnerabilities and fixes, and commercial support that you will have with every single LTS. So let's check what we had since Java 11 and 17. I'm not going to discuss it again, everything. I'm just going to give you the most important things, especially either it's in Java language because this is the main interest. And if you want to dig deeper, go to the articles, and there's a bunch of people speaking about more what is behind these kind of features, even the main JIPs. So let's speak about Java 11 new features because this is one the first LTS introduced in the new release cadence, and it brought like one language, enhancement. We will speak about it, which is local variable syntax for Lambda parameters because it's related to var, which is introduced in Java 10. You can see there is a bunch of enhancement always comes to the JVM. We have dynamic class file constants. We have Epsilon GC, which is a new garbage collection that does nothing. Just you literally it does nothing. It's just out there to use it, but it's used to meant to test performance and memory optimization. So you don't have to have poses. You don't have to do this. So it's very useful for very mission critical applications. You have ZGC. It was experimental introduced. We have low overhead heap profiling. We have also improved the architecture for 60-bit instruction set for this based architecture. So there is a huge just gain from just switching to GDK with default, as Peter says before. You don't have even to configure. You'll gain 60% improvement in the memory and performance just by migrating from 8 to 11, just out of the box. From the tools, we have Lunch single file source code program. We will see it. It's very interesting. I love this feature. And also we have flight recorders, and we have a bunch of standardized API, which is kind of like HTTP client. It was incubator in Java 9 and 10, and then has been standardized in GDK 8. No, sorry, 11. And what does it mean? That means that I don't need any outside library to handle my HTTP modern library that use HTTP protocol 1.1 and 2. And now we have it built in GDK that we supports like WebSocket, supports REST API calls, and asynchronous and synchronous. So it's built in. You don't need to use something outside. Definitely for the language we are supporting, Unicode 10, and it goes supporting to the latest Unicode, wherever it comes as a standard. Definitely, we cannot move without security. So there is a lot of deprecation for security, old ones, and introduce the new, things for security, because we are in the cybersecurity era. We have a lot of attacks and vulnerabilities, and Java is coping, and they have a strategy for this, and a strategy to how to batch, even either for long-term support or even for 6 release cadence releases, feature based, and even deprecation for the old things to not be used, and emphasize for more secure APIs that we are going to use. Definitely, it will not goes without deprecations. What does it mean? By the way, Java 11 was the first JDK that introduced removal and deprecation for the new concept of deprecation. We all, since Java 1, we have deprecated, which give us like, yeah, you should not use it. There is might be some alternative, but it will not prevent you from using it because it's still out there. And to maintain at the background compatibility and all of this kind of jungle, it's really, really tremendous efforts and work to need to be done to maintain something out of the sink of all technology just for it's deprecated. The decision has been made. Yes, we have to remove, to clear up and reduce the size, and cleaning this jungle to be like fortress, and beautiful garden. So it becomes more efficient, less support, focus, and there is no need for something that might bring harm to the developers and things out there because it's deprecated. No, let's remove it and remodel if we can, and introduce some new features. Let's see some examples, like for the main changes in the language. Like, we have this kind of lambda expressions, and we can declare the type, and also we can remove the type. And it came into Java 11 that we can use var with lambda. Like, why? It's redundant, right? But yes, we have introduced it for a specific case, because sometimes if you are applying annotations does require a type, and this is why we need to use var without using the full declaration of using the variable type, and just using var with annotations, and you can use this feature. The other one is, to be honest, it's like, it's nice to have it, which is like the new launch protocol. So in old ways, as Peter even mentioned before, in order to write just a simple hello Java developer class like this to print it, we need to compile it and then run the Java class with Java as the following. So this is like a ceremony. We don't need it if you are trying to test something and bring students into our language, and also trying to give them like, okay, you have one step has been cut, and you can make it much easier. So it's run Java with Java immediately. And now with the new launch protocol, you can have it like this. So it's very nice that you can use it. You have a class and you'd like to test a feature, just run it immediately. You don't need intermediate compilation. The compilation goes in memory. And this feature also is very important, because when it combined with something called shell scripting with Java using shebang, so we can write literally a class like this. We can normal Java class, and then we have this first line, very first line using shebang notation, provide the source 11, 20, since 11 it works, so you can provide to the newer source 21, so we can use the the features of that language. And even you can use this with the new unnamed classes and instance main methods we will see in 21. So what does it mean? It means that you will treat this class as normal bash script. So the only one thing that you need, save this code file name to any file name, but Java require that the file name equal to the class name. It does not important. It's not important anymore in this case, because it's in memory compilation. It's not class path loading. So, and then just change the mode to be executable using this command, and voila, you can just use /dir list and it will run. You can put these files inside your bin folder to be default, and you can call it immediately if you do something. The beautiful part here that I am writing in Java, which is my language, something that could run using normal bash understood by the operating system, and it will be run without any problem. So I use this to do my black box testing for my applications. I don't have to write bash anymore. I'm writing Java pure. And to test my API, I use HTTP client, which introduced in GDK. So you can see that it's pretty easy and cool that I can create, a new HTTP client. I can define the request, and then finally I can call the client, send asynchronous. Here is the request, and I'm expecting string coming back. Then get the body and accept the body when it comes and print it out. And please continue joining in this because this is like a synchronous call and I need to join the current thread. So this is how we can create, call, send request, and receive the response using HTTP model. And if I would like to use WebSockets, I have to define a listener interface, to define the most important like listeners methods. And then I just same paradigm, like I'm creating WebSocket from HTTP client using new WebSocket builder, and I'm building a sync. I'm using the URL, then register my listener, and then joining, and I will receive the communication. As you can see, WebSocket. That when I finish, I can send connection to close, and then I will wait for the closing connection, and it works like this. So it's the same programming model API, but works with everything. You can define proxy. There is a bunch of security configuration, but this is the basics if I want. So imagine that using this kind built-in client and with the previous feature that we have here with Shebang, we can test all of our API doing without learning a new language and providing something out of the box, all with just GDK. So Java 12 came and it introduced something very new to us. We didn't get used to it as a concept. It's the first release that includes something called preview feature. Such feature to be like available if the compiler and JVM is launched with the dash dash enable preview flag, an option. And this is very important that because now we have two different byte codes based on this. And you could still use Java 12 as a normal production, no problem. But if you would like to try out these features, you have to enable this flag on your own risk because it means that these kind of features, which is under preview or even incubator, might change, and there is a changes could be happens, and then you have to be aware of this until it's standardized. When it's standardized, you don't need to use this flag. So switch expressions came into first preview in this release, and GVM have a new garbage collector Shenandoah, and this is a low boast time garbage collector has been introduced. There is new port, there is architecture, 64-bit port, not two. There were two for different like kind of distributions, and they just merged it into one to minimize the support and focus on this kind of architecture. And also we have enhancement over the default garbage collection G1 GC about the memory optimization and returning of unused memory. And definitely there is two important tools has been introduced: micro benchmark suits that is used by internal GDK to test different decisions about the algorithms. It's not performance testing for your application. You can use JMeter for this purpose, but if you have like different queries, for example, in the same class, and you would like to test the performance, you can use microbench, harassment tools like this, harassing tools like this, which is microbench tool that it's included in GDK by default. You can use if you have mathematical algorithms that you would like to test the performance of it. You can just launch this kind of improve performance, and you can test your API algorithms performance test, not the whole performance test for your system. It's completely different. And in Java 13, there is a new features has been continuation of switch expressions, introducing some new stuff, removing some old, odd things introduced with switch expressions. We will see it. And this is how the preview features work based on the feedback of the community. Text blocks has been introduced, and a lot of improvement again in the GVM. You can see that Java always focusing on every single release, improving memory and the GVM. And yes, this is like Java 13 was focusing more on the language and also focusing on how we introduce this kind of new features and preview features. This is why it's a very less main features, but behind the scene you can find a bunch of bug fixes, security improvements, and many additions, improvement in the string API. There is a bunch of like methods, collectors, streaming additions, like, but they are not going to be announced for every and single job. The Java enhancement proposal always like something that is significant to work to take as a main feature, so you have to know about it. It's very changing feature for the language, or something like it's going to be removed or added. But the enhancement in the API comes in the release notes, and it's as Peter showed to you, that there is like 5 pages just of the features that has been added as a GDK release notes, not mentioned as a main features. So this is the big difference between both of them. And once something new happens, that re-implementing the legacy socket API to prepare it for virtual threading, which is related to project, Loom. And this has to happen in, it was a project Loom separately that could be tested. But in order to bring virtual threads and making use of this kind of new model of concurrency and paradigm, we have to prepare the internals of the GDK to be ready for this, then introduce these kind of features for the application developers and authors to make use of it. So the GDK is ready and your application is ready to make use of this feature fully fledged. This concept has been is similar to, in GDK 8, when there is a new compact profiles, but static, that you can make use of them to lower the size of the GDK, and the source files that you can, but they were static. Static means that you cannot change them. What inside them are just predefined. Then this is the concept to prepare for the GDK Jigsaw project, which is Java modular system. And now, since the GDK has been prepared to have this kind of module, instead of the one source jar file that have everything, you have modules, and based on the modules, you can just pick what you want and relevant for your application. So it's the same. It's a preparation. Now they give us the tool. GDK is ready. It's a bunch of modules instead of one jar file, and you can use and create your own modules and things. So this is the concept and the preparation. If we go for Java 14 evolution, you see bunch of things happening. And first of all, we have switch expression has been standardized and becomes production ready. Records has been introduced as a first preview, and text block goes into the second preview. Pattern matching of instance also came into the first preview as a version. GVM receives bunch of also enhancement. ZGC becomes available for Mac OS and Windows as a different, like for more availability. One of the nice feature also came like helpful null pointer exceptions. This is very nice in explaining where is the null pointer exception happening if you have a chain of variables calling. We will see this, and definitely a bunch of deprecations, as you can see, for some older garbage collection, for packaging tool that was old, in favor to introduce a new packaging tool. And also there is a new API has been introduced for non-volatile mapping by buffers, and foreign memory access API has been introduced as first incubator. There is a big difference also between incubator and preview, and we will discuss it. Packaging tool, we are removing back 200 API and tools completely has been removed. And then what is coming as a modern packaging tool, which is the new packaging tool, has been introduced in Java 14. And we will see about this when it comes to standardization. And it came as an incubator. And what is the feature like switch expression? Here is the old way of doing it. And you have to include break statement. If you forget it, you will fail through, and this kind of problem that you can cut your hair because of this. But in order to simplify and make it more efficient, we introduce switch, statement to be like this. You can use arrow token, and this way you don't need break, because it says yes, when you match a case, you just do this action and that's it. So this is how it's enhanced. And then we can like we get rid of like the old break and just its assignment directly for the leg case. But also like if this is something that you want to assign a value, why we don't make use of switch as an expression, not just only statement? And we can simplify it so we can get rid of string Roman value and return it at the end, and we can immediately return from switch. So we can just use the same structure, but we don't need even the assignment anymore, and just say, hey, whenever you match the case, return the value immediately. So this is what is switch statement expressions has given to us. It's more concise and now more efficient. And let's see some other stuff like, you remember that we have some such cases also, like multi-comma separated labels in a single switch statement. And you need like to say like this is 0, and from 1 to 9 it's odd, and from 2 to 10 it's kind, and whatever you have based on your case. And this is like ugly a little bit, to be honest. And I have to use also break, and in order to simplify it, we just can have it like this. So it doesn't matter assignment or switch statement or expression. Now you know that you can use it both, so you just can use the case, and you can use uh, comma separated, and you just use this kind of a new syntax which is more concise than before. And even you can use yield if you are using semicolon case, not arrow token, to just introduce. By the way, it was before Java 14. It was in 13. It was introduced as a break, and then the community complained like it's odd to say break zero, break odd, break even, and because of the feedback, it has been dropped and then replaced with yield. And this is why preview feature is just might exposed to changes, and you have to take care of and then use the flag. And if we went further, this feature is really, really nice that in old Java, if you are having, a.i and you're running it, and a is like, it's so obvious that a could be null, then you cannot access I, that you have uh, an exception that says where is the exception and which line of the program and in which program and method. But what if you have a case like this, like a.b.c.I, like where the new, if you are using this flag to enable it by default in Java 14, but it's from starting from 15 onward, it becomes default. Then you will have an exception, and if you have a null pointer exception here, you don't know either it's A or B or C. And then I want to make breakpoints and see which variable of them. But with the new feature of helpful null pointer exception, you can get it like this, like, yes, you have null pointer exception, you cannot read field C because A.B is null, and at the program main line number this. So it's more descriptive for options. So Java 15 came to standardize the most beautiful string enhancement, which is brought by text blocks, and introduce something called sealed classes. Pattern matching, for instance, of has been receiving the second preview and feedback. Records has been gone to the second, preview. GVM has more enhancement for ZGC and Shenandoah, and B went production. So since Java 15, we have ZGC and Shenandoah garbage collectors are ready for production. And we have a new API for security. We have hidden classes. We have also the second incubator for foreign memory access API, and another part of preparation for Project Loom, re-implementing legacy datagram socket API, and then we remove the old non-used things. So disable and deprecate biased locking, remove arithmetic because deprecated, and mark it for removal and for future removal. And we remove Nashorn JavaScript engine in favor that we have GraalVM, and remove the Solaris and Spark ports because it's not supported operating systems anymore. So there is no need for supporting such things because it's legacy and uh, how to say uh, back um, backward compatibility support. Sorry. And literally what text block means, like, we have concatenation, especially if you'd like in longer lines, multi-lines text, and with this kind of things, you can imagine how we can write it like SQL statement, JSON, XML, HTML, whatever we want to, refine and write in our annotations for just Spring, like query or whatever it is. Like you have to align it to be readable, but it's not readable anymore. But with using text block, you can just write it like this. Text block taking care of indentation, taking care of the new lines, taking care of everything. And also, text block is not limited just to static things, but I will not go into deeper into this. But I would like to mention that you can use formatted, and you can have some variable inside, and you can substitute this variable, and you can just dynamically substitute the values, not only for static text. So this is very powerful feature came into standardized in Java 15. And in Java 16, records and pattern matching, for instance, of becomes standardized, and now you can use it for production. There is some warning for value-based classes in order to prepare that we can see in the future that wrapper classes will be treated as normal data types. So you don't have to create instance of them. This is also that you can find, like if you're trying to create an instance of integer or something, you will receive warnings for this is a value based, like optional. Optional is a value based class. All these classes that holding data only with inside like wrapper classes are value based classes. And now in for future enhancement, that they doesn't need to be synchronized anymore, so you don't have to worry about concurrency. You don't have to assign it immediately into using constructor. This is where you are, if you are using integer equal new integer and you put one, you will receive a warning now, because you cannot use constructor anymore. You can use integer x equal 1 immediately, treat it as a normal, because it's value based, and then you don't have to worry about it inside, because about the concurrency. If you try to make synchronization of these value based, it will throw an exception. So we have static members and errand classes. We have sealed classes that is going to the second preview. GVM, as you can see, enhancement for ZGC. We have Alpine Linux port. It was like forked from 16, so now we can use it for Docker images and cloud. We have also another port for Windows architecture, 64-bit, like for availability for the new Java, for new Windows 11, and strongly encapsulate JDK internals to prevent using Mescal and Sun classes that has been used for a long time, and prevent the JDK internal from moving forward. And we have improvement in the memory using elastic metaspace. We have the new packaging tool has been standardized. We have a new vector API has been introduced. So Java records, it's a complaint that Java is too verbose.
Yeah.
Is too verbose, or has too much memory ceremony. And the worst of the offenders that are classes that does nothing except just only to be immutable data carriers for a handful of values. Probably, writing such data carriers actually with a lot of low level repetitive error prone coding, like constructors, accessors, and equal hash code, something like very simple like this. If you have things like this, and imagine that just only to hold x and y, and why we have to have all of this ceremony, and to define it. And this class should be also final, to not be extended, and so on. And record just trying to make it transparent and very, very easy to just to provide like carrier for immutable data. Record can consider be nominal tulips. So by reducing the ceremony, we can remove all these boilerplates, and we have the point class could be rewritten as just simple as it is. Where is the methods? It will be created for you by default by the compiler. And how we can like also consider like constructors for this. If you'd like to check about data, we have canonical constructor. We can do reassignment after checking. And if you would like only to check about the data, not reassigning or changing the value, we can use compact constructors and as this form. Also, local record method that you can use as inside the method or inside the class, local records inside the method as a definition for immediate operation. So you don't have to have it externally as a source code, because you don't need it as a single class as a of type of record in order to use it inside the method. So for intermediate operation, you can also use it. So this is about record pattern matching. For instance of this is to introduce like the pattern matching that should significantly reduce the overall number of explicit casts that we are considering, like for n equal. So imagine that we have an equal method like this, and we have to use to test like of O instance of this and O, and then do the casting and equal ignore case. To do this operation, we have to cast and to check about instance of everything. Like this is boilerplate, and we can have it like this. If O is instance of this, yes, it is, then cast it implicitly and assign this variable to CIS, and you can make use of CIS afterward immediately using an AND without any problem. And more complex that you are using and also that after this kind of assignment, you can test about some features of that explicitly casted string, implicitly casted string, if it is instance of string already, and then the second hand will be evaluated. So imagine something like this as an equal, it could be reduced to be like this. So it's much more concise and efficient. If we are taking like a new feature of Java 17, which is the next LTS, we don't have too much. We just have sealed classes has been, in a like standardized, and we have pattern matching for switch coming for as a first preview. So we have finalized it for instance of, now we have to bring it for switch. And we are trying also to, standardize the way that floating point has been calculated to get to the old one without many different calculations to make make it more performant. Definitely, there is a new macOS support for rendering pipeline, a new architecture for macOS for the new silicon-based processors has been introduced. This is show you how the GVM is getting more availability on all the architecture that has been introduced very, easily and frequent, and also now strongly in GDK internals that you cannot make use of it. API enhancement, as you can see, and also deprecation as usual, removal. And you see that we have deprecated RMI, and now it's removed in Java 17, and deprecate applets for removal and security managers. What's new? Like, let's talk about sealed classes. Sealed classes actually interfaces. This is you of the class or interface author to control the code responsible for implementing it. Not just, you are extending and trying to use keywords to prevent inheritance and out of the package or inside the package, but you can provide more concise way of authoring the hierarchy. And imagine something like this. So if I would like to seal a class called shape, and I will only permit circle, rectangle, square, and weird shape to be implemented, I will use permit keyword, contextual keyword to be concise, and then the circle has to be final because it cannot be extended, and it's extend shape, and I can make sealed classes rectangle that also extend shape and allow some other more authoring of this only, and those classes has to be final. And then square extend shape, and I would like to open this kind of non-sealed class weird shape for anyone outside this implementation to do what they wanted to do, but just only this. So they cannot extend square, they cannot extend rectangle, or even transparent rectangle, or fill rectangle, or circle to do changes inside this. Only you can use this. This is give you more control about these kind of hierarchy and classes. So sealed classes also works perfectly with records. So if we have this mathematical, expressions, we can express it using records, because records are final always. So it's pretty lovely. And definitely these two combination between seed classes and records, referred to as algebra data types. Record classes allow us to express product types, and sealed classes allow us to express sum of types. So packaging tool, I wanted to mention, it has been introduced and finalized. So this is provide a very modern way to packaging tool, self-contained Java applications, and it could be used to, for native packaging on Microsoft Windows with MSI and XE. It can produce package and DMG on macOS, and deb and RPM on Linux. And how we use it very simply by using package dash dash name of your application and your input libraries if there is some, and your main jar and main jar application. And if you'd like to specify the main class, you can use this flag in order to be runnable. And also you can type the package name using the type if you would like to specifically have a different packaging. But by default, it will check the operating system, the architecture, and produce the relevant package for it. So it's very easy, more capable, and modern. So from 18, actually, we have pattern match for switch. We don't have too much, it's just more enhancement, but we have more API and GVM enhancement that's significant to know about, and which is UTF by default. So imagine the old days that when we write and read, especially about between Linux and macOS and Windows, every one of them has default character set. And if you are not careful about this kind of character set encoding and decoding, you will like feel pain of this. This is very important to take care of. So imagine that you are writing a class like this. I'm using Arabic here, and I wrote this file on Linux, and I give it to you to read it on Windows. What you will get? Simply rubbish. Why? Because of the different character systems. What Java 18 brought to us, that we will use UTF by default everywhere. So you don't have to worry about conversion anymore. So the GVM will do this for you. So if you do this starting from JDK 18 onward, you will not have this rubbish anymore as a problem. So thank you for the JDK 18 and the GVM and JDK 18 to bring this amazing, feature to us, to reduce our ceremony of taking care of these kind of conversions, especially for newcomers. It needs a significant skill, and also to be worry less about this kind, write and read immediately without any problem. And simple web server, sometimes we need some functionality to introduce static content and test it. So we have to go to Node.js or to some other like static server to host some documentation or something that I would like to try. But now Java has just give you a simple server just called Java Web Server. And just if you run it like this, it will give you an interface and give you, a port that it's listening for your local port, a local address host on port 800. And you can definitely have, it has bunch of configuration that you can configure, but it's don't consider it as a very performant server, just for testing purpose and to give you a glimpse how you can test your static files using your favorite language. I cannot go without code snippets, because this is something really very important for documentation and how we treat code. And in favor that we are using pre and add code in the old times, and this is kind of code that is static, and if even outdated could be compared to the code that we are referring to. So you have a lot of problems and a lot of ceremony. Snippet take it much more further step, and we can use it like this. It can refer to files, it can do highlighting and do a lot of pattern matching for this kind of things, and for highlighting, for adding links easily, and doing a bold and emphasizing in some part, and also can refer to an actual files to get the code from out there. So whenever you change your code in the source code, it will reflect immediately into your documentation, so you don't to have this kind of synchronization problem. What you will get in Java documentation actually something very nice, that you will have your normal Java doc, like how to read text file, but you will get this rectangular gray background, rectangle with the code. If there is highlights, it will be shown. If there is links, it will be shown. And you have a copy button here in the upper right corner that you can copy the code and just use it. And everywhere, it's very interesting, looks nice, and also very, collaborative. This is very good for testing when you write documentation for test, and synchronization about the code snippet that actually resides in the code. So you don't have to copy paste them regardless of the site. You just mention them in the code. You do the region from where to where, and that's it. And whenever you change in the source code, compile your code, generate your Java documentation, it will be in the same sync, not out of sync like before. So I love this, and I wanted to show it to you. Java 19 has gone through a little bit lower list of versions. So we have record pattern as the first preview, and pattern matching for switch gone through the third preview. And we have Linux RISC V port for VM, so more availability. This is a new port. And there is enhancement and introduction to virtual threads in favor to bring Project Loom to production finally. So it's very interesting and amazing. So Java 20 new features were less and less, just continue the preview feature enhancement over record patterns, pattern matching for switch, and enhancing the scoped value introduced for the first time. It's equivalent to thread local, but more efficient and immutable for virtual threads, and maintaining a scope, so we don't worry about the concurrency from outside to access our piece, and we have to release it. It will be distracted once the scope of the threads has been finished and done. Structured concurrency, the new model of concurrency API to address many problems we had before, and Vector API went through the fifth incubator version. So lastly, 21. And this is the next LTS release after Java 17, after 2 years, decision that has been made. So it brought to us record pattern matching for switch as a production. We have other stuff like string template and named pattern and variables and named classes and instance main methods. So bunch of API enhancement, GVM enhancement, as Peter mentioned, and deprecations as well. I will just focus for a little bit some very significant. So sequence collections, you have heard it from Peter. He gave you an overview, but the new methods has been added to collections class. Sorted set and linked hash set has reversed view, and sorted maps and linked hash map make use of this reverse, and you can use orders. So if we have examples before to get the first and last elements, we were using this, but now we can use it get first and get last. And moreover, if we are about record patterns case, if consider this record, and before Java 21 we have to use it like this, but to make it much more easier for querying the record pattern, we can now in Java 20 we can use this kind of pattern, record pattern, so we can access X and Y immediately without using the declaration of the pattern. So the second case is a pattern map for switch. So also in the switch before Java 21, we have to use it like this, and you have to use B and B of the Y, but now it's simplified to use X and Y directly, and so on. Similar concepts goes for nested. So if we have pass, contain position and position, and before we could use it like this, pass and p dot from dot y, it's so ugly and lengthy, but we can make use of just from and position, and even we can take it much further step that we can and have it like this, even like then access that directly the field X and Y and XY and Y2 like this. So the nested record pattern, actually the real power, it comes here. If you have sealed classes and you have records and you would like to write something very nice for this, and you can have it like this, switch case and pass. If it will check first the hierarchy, and if it is the case pass of position 2D, and it will catch and it will match this case. But if it's 3D, it will match this case. If we don't have this enhancement with record pattern, we would write this previously like this without record patterns enhancement and switch. So you have to check it first, pass it B, and then if it's yes, and when B the form is instance of position 2D from and B to 2 is instance of 2D, then do this. So it was very, verbose, and it has a lot of sermon treated with record pattern enhancement, with which you can have it in the previous form that I showed you like this. So this was the real power of pattern record pattern. Move on with pattern matching per switch. Before Java 21, we can write this, and we have end, and now we have when as a for more meanings, not end, because when you match the case and when also the length greater than do 1, 2, 3, 4. So string template. Actually, this is something very, very nice, and I will not go to it, but before we have this, we can concatenate it at usual concatenation. We can use string.format, or we can use formatted of the method of the string. And all of this doesn't do any kind of security checks and injection checks or something like this. So in the new way that we use string variables, we can use it like this, interpolated. So we have the standardized imported template everywhere, str, and then you just use this notation to access your variable, and you can do even mathematical equations, and also you can use mass dot multiple exact or any kind of API inside this kind of string, and the calculation will be done and returned as a result. And even more, you can have it multi-line like this, and you can see that here I'm using today's date, and I'm looking local.now.format. Then I use some comments, and I use another class to do the formatting, and I'm returning it. So it's very powerful. And if I would like to combine this with text block for readability, I can use it like for JSON, for example. If I HTTP status and error message, I can create my JSON string, and I just I write it like this, and I just access my variables in this way, much more concise and easy. So the string class get more and more and more enhancement. And beside this, you can check my articles about like the bunch of methods added to enhance the string class, and improve it all over the time and make it much easier. So unnamed pattern and variables. So imagine that we are using exceptions, and this way that I'm just not a number. Like, why I have to care about the name of the exception or the variable? And also here, like if compute if absence and k doesn't do anything, and I have to figure out naming and naming conventions and good names, for code to be readable. And to get rid all of this, like we have unnamed variables, so we can just use underscore. And this is why it was disallowed in Java 9 in favor to this very first feature to have it here. Moreover, also we can use it with record. For example, like if we have this kind of declaration, and I'm just using X, why I don't want to, why I have to think about this declaration? So I can omit why and use it. So I name the pattern variable in this case. But sometimes you can see that I only use X, why I have to have the declaration? So I can omit it all, and this is called unnamed pattern. So this is moreover getting you like more, way of, accessing your code parts without caring a lot about namings and just introducing many things. If we take it even further, it's much more easier. Like in Switch, you can have it like this. I don't use even case byte and things like that, dbsif. Like I don't use it, just printing numbers. I could make it use of this, like underscore. So even this looks like lengthy because I see like integer number, integers, like I can use it like this using comma separated. So it's more powerful and giving you more control over the variable naming and things that you don't want to use of it. And finally, Peter mentioned this like also, and this is one of the favorite, but this is the least favorite also for Simon. Writer, and this is our podcast. We were speaking about it, but it's something nice for bringing newcomers and in education. But for as a Java developer, I prefer to have this ceremony because I understand it. But yes, to bring newcomers that are lazy to learn too much, and even to say like, yeah, I have to focus later on. Just guys, you can get rid of it. If they saw this, they will be annoyed and they wanted to learn. Like, why I have to write this? I have to memorize. No, guys, you don't need to do this. Just you can omit the class completely, void main. You can start your handy coding. But when you get more into the big part of the programs and class pass and everything, you need to have classes and everything like this. But as a first step, and also this is also since GDK 21, it could be used with, you remember, Java 11 feature, launch a single source code file, like using protocol Java, run Java with Java. Yes, we can get the class name. It's officially correct piece of code, and you can just run it and you can get this kind of um, feedback immediately. So also unnamed classes that you can have, it can have variables and it can have methods inside and you can access them. And this is a very valid also piece of code that you can include it in any class of any name and you can just make use of it and run it. So this is for learning purposes and getting more and more people, students into our language. So until here, I get reached to my finalization of this presentation to walk you through all the things that we have. And sorry, this is us. I'm missing here this part, and it will come now almost. So this is all the are links. You can access all of them to have this kind of dig deeper about not just what I mentioned now as an opinionated feature, but many more features that you can get into and also can explain. Reach me on my LinkedIn or whatever it is, and if you have questions, I don't know if we have times for questions. I think so, no, but
Yeah,
thank
I
you very
don't
much.
think so, Mohammed. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you have
didn't want to
more.
interrupt you. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah, I mean, see, even the second talk is not enough to talk about the old features that we have, especially like during all this kind of years on the long run. So thank you very much. That was I guess as always useful for the fellow developers.